Okay, so we're almost done with White House Plumbers. This was episode 4, and it's a 5-part miniseries. So, in this episode, we're dealing with the aftermath of the Watergate break-in and the subsequent arrest of the burglars. The burglars, at least in this episode, are keeping quiet, except James McCord being James McCord, not an unknown entity in Washington, D.C. Well, he was discovered. His identity was discovered. So, so yeah, that didn't work well at all. But and so and so begins the unraveling of of this um of this conspiracy to bug the offices of Watergate. And that's basically what did Nixon in. It's not the actual break-in because he they implied that the fourth break-in was from the White House, but the thing that killed Nixon was the cover-up of the. And he covered it up because, well, he did know about stuff. And like Liddy pointed out in the show, there are other things that came directly from the White House that could implicate Nixon. But anyway, so the show starts off with two highly different ways of dealing with what just happened. Liddy is cool as a cucumber, and it's not so much because he's that much of a badass as he's probably that much of an idiot. But, like he likes to play spy games, and he thinks that things are like a TV show, or in this case, the movies, because 007 seems to be his hero. So I don't think he fully understands the gravity of what's happening. But anyway, now I'm talking about the TV show Liddy, not the real life one. I really don't know enough to comment. So Liddy is like, nonchalantly telling Fran that he's probably going to prison. Well, he said jail, but I'm pretty sure it's prison. Yes, there is a difference. So, but most of this revolves, or like the whole show really, mostly revolves around Hunt and his family. So Howard grabs onto St. John and asks him, "Can I trust you?" And it's like, "Yeah, you can trust me." And he tells him that he really screwed up and he needs his help getting rid of some stuff. Now, based on what St. John said to his mother later, I'm sure he understood that what he was doing was wrong with getting rid of evidence, but at the same time I think he was more scared of what his mom was going to say than the actual act of tampering with, or in this case, getting rid of evidence. So the next day, or I think it's the next day, first Liddy pays a visit to the acting attorney general. John Mitchell is not the attorney general because he had stepped down to focus on Nixon's re-election campaign. Because, in theory anyway, because thank you, Trump, it's just sad that Trump out Nixon. That's just because under Trump, the Attorney General was his attack dog. But even under Nixon, John Mitchell's like, yeah, I'm the people's lawyer. This is a conflict of interest if I'm, campaigning for Nixon because I'm supposed to be nonpartisan. So he resigned, and so we saw the acting Attorney General. And Liddy is telling him what's happening, and he's like, what the hell did I just get myself into? So, then Liddy talks with John Dean, and at least in relation to how the show goes, this is probably why Liddy wasn't a part of the payments being delivered by Mr. Rivers. And he's telling John Dean everything, all the way back to the White House plumbers, oh yeah, they're not going to be able to get Nixon on Watergate, but there's this other stuff. And John Dean's like, la 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 la, I can't hear you, because he just didn't want to know any of it, because the more he knows, the more he might be forced to divulge. And he did not want to be put in that position of having to divulge stuff because, Liddy's an idiot and he's telling him stuff. Magruder found him in his office as he's panicking. And, well, before I get to that, and he told John Dean that, oh, and if you want to send out a sniper to just off me, I'll just stand on the street corner and, just make sure it's a headshot. And John Dean's like, okay, you're insane. You're absolutely insane. And like I said, I'm sure that's why he wasn't given hush money, whereas everyone else was paid off, because he basically was like, I'll go down with the ship. So, because, like I said, he is a moron. So, in reality, he was supposed to get money from separate channels. Whether that happened, I don't know. I read some testimony from Howard Hunt. Anyway, to try to figure out who this Mr. Rivers is. And unfortunately, it was never divulged. But anyway. So, Howard is going insane. He tells his kids, well, he told St. John that he's a spy. Now Lisa knows he's a spy as well, because, I guess Howard didn't have a problem with St. John telling Lisa, or maybe he told Lisa himself. I don't know. And Dorothy tries to call because it's in the paper that she got in France. And she's like, oh, holy hell. So she's trying to call Howard. And of course he instructed that nobody under any circumstances should answer the phone, answer the door. He's like totally in freak out mode. And he even knows that one of those calls is probably from Dorothy, and he's like, I just do not want to deal with her right now. Because obviously Dorothy wasn't going to cut short her vacation to berate him. I don't know what he was thinking. That she's a former CIA operative. I mean, she's not going to be like, oh, Howard's not calling and this happened. And Howard's not answering and this happened. Doop-de-doop-de-doo, back to vacation. What? Nobody would do that, but she's a former CIA operative. She's definitely not going to do that. So, somehow they managed to have a rendezvous point, Liddy and Hunt. And so Liddy goes to his bunker because that's the best way to avoid the reporters. Now, at this moment, the reason the reporters are in front of Hunt's house and not Liddy's is that Hunt, there was a letter from Hunt on one of the burglars. In reality, his phone number was in their address book, in a couple of their address books. But anyway, so that's why the reporters are in front of his house, because he's obviously implicated because of that. Now, at this moment, he isn't being implicated as a conspirator. It was just a matter of why does somebody have mail in your name? But he's freaking out because he doesn't want to talk to anybody. The FBI tries a couple of times, and they're being very nice. It's not like they're beating down the door and forcing their way into his house and making him answer questions or anything. They're being very, very polite. And so Dorothy comes home, and I don't think she told the kids what was happening, because they get home, and first off, there's all these reporters, and Kevin is like, what is going on? She comes into the house. Lisa gleefully tells her that Dad is a spy. She's like, that's not true. No, that's true. Now, I have to admit, in this episode, which so far is my favorite episode of the series, I find it funny, and I'm pretty sure if the real Howard Hunt is just as toxic as this version of Howard Hunt, he's probably turning in his grave at the thought of him wearing a frilly apron and making pancakes. So, yeah. But anyway, so he's wanting to make pancakes, and Dorothy is like, I want to talk to you. And she rips him a new one for what he did, because she warned him that this was all going to go bad. And he's like, it wasn't my fault. I tried to stop them. Which is true. He went reluctantly because everybody was totally on board. And he's like, fuck. So, that isn't wrong. But, just the fact that he was put in a position that this was going to come back and bite them in the ass, still not a good look. Even though he's like, okay, that's enough. We're not doing this anymore. Just that he got this far was still bad. And Dorothy is like, okay, we need a lawyer. And I have no idea what's going to happen to our family now. Which I hope at the end of next episode, they do a little snippet. Like show, especially for the kids. Because like I said, except for John Dean, I think everybody else is dead. Dorothy obviously is. That was bad. Anyway, I hope that they have a little snippet of, of the those who went to jail, how long did they serve, where are they now, what did they do in the meantime, because again, John Dean is still very much alive. But especially the kids. Because that's gotta, especially the younger ones, that's gotta be so messed up for them. Because at least people like Lisa and Kevin, they're adults, especially Kevin. Because she's older than Lisa, and Lisa's 23. So, these are adults. the rest of them, especially the really little ones, that's gotta be rough. And especially for David, because of what happens at the end of the episode. So it would be nice to have a little snippet of where are they now, or what happened to them since the events of this show. And so Gordon is trying to get, he's sure that they're going to be taken care of. And Howard is less sure because he isn't quite the idiot Gordon is. And Dorothy is by far the most intelligent of everyone on the show. So they're meeting with a lawyer. Howard and Dorothy are meeting with a lawyer, and they're making out Dorothy to be so much more competent and that she can, tell Howard what to do, which is a sharp contrast to Gordon and Fran, where basically Fran needs Gordon to give her permission to do anything, like drive. Now, again, I don't know if that was the same thing in real life or they're just doing it for the show. But I just loved the dinner where, first, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So they decide, Dorothy basically threatens the White House, that we know shit, so you better, compensate us for what's going on, because you owe us and we could bring you down. And which I discovered that through Howard's testimony, that Howard was the one who did this, which makes much more sense because Dorothy even whined about sexism, that they weren't taking her seriously, even though she was the contact initially. She felt like she wasn't being taken seriously, and so what was agreed upon was not what she got. But in the show, she was getting all this money, and they discovered that Gordon wasn't going to be a part of it. And I'm pretty sure that has something to do with what Gordon told John Dean, saying, if you want to just shoot me, go for it. So I'm pretty sure they took that as we're not giving him money. We're not giving him hush money. He can go hang himself. That's fine. Of course, that's shitty for Fran and the kids because, at least in the show, Fran is shown to be completely unaware of what's happening. But, so they show a montage of Dorothy doing the same thing, of going to an airport locker, getting money, going back, and doing that multiple times. And it's implied, which actually did happen, she was also in charge of getting money for the 5 burglars. So there was a scene where she went into a diner and was talking to Jim McCord. And if you just looked at that scene and you said, thanks for the coffee or whatever, you would wonder, wait, what happened? She just walked in. I don't understand why she was paying for it. Well, that's probably why. And so she's doing all this, trying to keep everyone in the money, trying to work this stuff out, because Mr. Rivers would only work with the writer's wife. Now, I tried to find out who Mr. Rivers is, if we ever found out who he actually is. and all I could find was Howard's testimony. So if there is something else, then I missed it. So Dorothy is doing all of that and showing that she's the only one who's halfway competent. And so she's mad at Howard. And they have a dinner. And this is how so unaware Gordon is. And because at the dinner, they're talking about writing a book. Well, at first Howard didn't want to say his idea, and Dorothy was adamant. I mean, she was just enjoying this. But at first I thought because she thought it was a stupid idea, but then based on Gordon's reaction, she was like, wait a minute, what the hell? So, I don't know. But anyway, so they're at the dinner, and Howard gives his idea, and Gordon sees that as being disloyal to Nixon. And Howard's like, let's just give our side of the story so we don't look like third-rate burglars. Because, let's face it, your side of the story doesn't have to be the truth. I mean, he's writing it, so he can write whatever. But Gordon wants to show his loyalty again, and he does that stupid hand on the flame. And Fran's like, don't do that. And so Howard just blows the candle out. And he's like, yeah, we're not doing this again. No, you weirdo. We're not doing this again. But before they storm off, Gordon points out about the stewardess who he gave his book to and wrote a note in, and how she's, showing it to the FBI. And that's probably why he doesn't want a book. And of course, Dorothy is just looking at him, staring daggers, which, based on how the show ended, I don't understand why this should be troubling to her. So, oh, and just so you know, I could find nothing about a divorce, or even talks of a divorce. But anyway, so she finally blurts out that they're broke now because they were keeping the Liddies afloat with this supposed hush money, because they were initially not going to get any money from Nixon. And she wanted to use that as proof that this isn't the person you should be loyal to. Because Howard is loyal to Liddy. He's loyal to Gordon. And so the dinner ends, and Fran was going to get up, and Gordon just makes her sit down because it's dinner time. It's like, does this man have emotions at all? I just don't understand. But anyway, so so then St. John is horseback riding with his mother, and he tells her about how how he and his father were getting along better lately, and that's because he asked him to do something. So he admits to his mother that he destroyed evidence. Granted, it wasn't like Liddy did, which he shredded actual money, which Magruder and Howard are both like, what is wrong with you? He so wants to do spy work that play spy games, and he can't even do that properly. But anyway, he destroyed. He shredded soap. He shredded the money because it could be traced back to them. And as Howard said, why couldn't you have just buried it? Just hidden it somewhere? But anyway, so he tells his mother that they've been destroying evidence, getting rid of evidence. And that sets her off because she's like, I wanted to divorce him years ago, but then Lisa had her accident and I just didn't think it was the right time. And she's like, I'm such an idiot. And so she's blaming all of this on her, which, I mean, he's still an idiot. He still would have done it. He just probably would have been even worse off than if she had been there. So, yeah, she tried to stop him, but at the same time, it could have been so much worse. So, so he, oh, so she, for some reason, is taking a flight to Chicago. Now, I don't know if it was addressed why she was going to Chicago, but this was the infamous flight. And she tells Howard at this moment that she wants a divorce. And he's upset that she was having an affair. And she's like, wait a minute, what about your affairs? And then she goes on I was lonely because you're never home. But anyway. So, wait, I forgot. Before then was election night. And Dorothy knows. First, Howard was like, if we want Nixon to win, because if he wins, we'll get a pardon. And David's like, what's that? Oh, nothing. So Nixon wins by a landslide, which was going to happen all along. And so they didn't need to go through all these extreme measures, which Dorothy told him before. The acting attorney general was like, why did you even do this? What was the point? Communism. What? Something tells me, now there were a lot of parallels to today. So, but I wonder if back then they truly understood what communism was. And they were actually closer to communism at the time. But anyway. So the election is over. Dorothy says, you're not going to get pardons now. They don't need you anymore. So the money dries up. And so she's going to Chicago for something. She tells Howard she wants a divorce. And Howard is trying to say how he's loyal to her, how he's always been loyal to her, because that's not toxic behavior at all. Saying you owe me because I was willing to lose racist friends over you. It's like, you're not racist, so all my racist friends left me. Yeah, that's not toxic at all. But anyway. So Dorothy boards the flight, and she gets bumped into by a guy who, now the conspiracy theory is that there was a hitman on the flight, specifically the guy who ran into her, with I think they said FBI, who was hired to kill her. Now, it's possible that that's true, and that then the plane crash happened and everybody ended up dying. Well, I shouldn't say everybody. There were some survivors. But, and they even said it was a mysterious plane crash. From what I read, it was a combination of poor visibility and pilot error. So, but yeah, the conspiracies are going to continue until we know everything. So, but yeah. So she boards the flight. She's talking with Michelle Clark, and she's about to tell her the truth about the JFK assassination, and that's when the plane crash happened. Now, whether the CIA, now that's a popular conspiracy theory that it was the CIA who assassinated JFK. And I'm not going to say that it's impossible. I'm not going to say it's impossible. This, as far as conspiracy theories go, this at least has some semblance of logic. But yeah, it has some semblance in the fact that the CIA isn't above this shit. But there's absolutely no evidence. So unless and until more documents are released, are declassified, we just know that Oswald was either acting alone or acting on the behalf of communist Cuba. Those are the only two options right now, rather than the CIA. Now, Howard does imply that, the CIA is still bitter from the Bay of Pigs fiasco, which, granted, he does get some blame for because he was unsure of himself, but yeah. Like I said, as far as conspiracy theories go, this one is actually close to being realistic. Most conspiracy theories just take a shred of doubt and just go wild with it. So next episode, let me bring up the description of the next episode. Oh, for crying out loud. Where did you go? Alright. And this episode was called The Writer's Wife, so of course Dorothy was the main character in this episode. But for next episode, Liddy shares his concern about Hunt's stability with John Dean, and Hunt's daughter leverages a secret notebook to convince her father to come clean in his Senate testimony. When the president resigns, lives are ruined. So I assume that that's how it's going to end, with the resignation of Nixon. So like I said, it would be because the trial lasted past his resignation. So hopefully there's some sort of epilogue or some scroll or something that says, okay, this person said this and was sentenced to this much in prison, and on and on and on, and what happened with the kids, especially the Hunt kids, which was, since that's the majority of the time that we spent with, and as far as families are concerned. But, to know, okay, this person died in this year after doing this, and this, that sort of thing. And just so they finish it off. If they're going to end, especially if they're going to end before the trial ends, that they end on Nixon's resignation but don't continue the trial, then yeah. And I believe that's all I have for now. And as for the stability thing, I saw that David and St. John had both claimed that their father was involved in the JFK assassination. And the girls were like, yeah, he was, going in and out of lucidity by then. So I don't know if that's what they're implying with this show, that he was never stable to begin with, which is possible. It's possible that he's misremembering stuff, or maybe there's some truth to it. Like I said, as far as conspiracy theories go, that's probably the most sane one. But yeah, I'm not going to believe it until I see evidence for it, because yes, the CIA has done some really despicable things, but without knowing, without having any evidence, I'm not going to say that for a fact. We just know what we know. But anyway, that Oswald fired the shot. So beyond that, we'll just have to wait. And with this flight, granted, this was the first plane crash for the Boeing 737 since it's been out for 6 years, but plane crashes still happen. Unfortunately, there's going to be a first time. So yeah, I'm not going to hop on board the conspiracy theory train. I mean, it's possible there was a hitman on that flight, but just because there was a hitman on that flight, and there were quite a few characters that were adjacent to Watergate on that flight, there were like 10. That does not necessarily mean that the plane was sabotaged. It just means that that hitman was probably going to do his thing when they landed in Chicago or whatever. So those are still two different things. But anyway, I think I've covered everything I wanted to with this episode, and I will see you guys for the end of White House Plumbers next Monday. So I'll see you then.